Amy Harrison looked out the window of her lab and sighed. The stars moved slowly past as the ship traveled through space. She had been on the New Horizons for 3 years now. 3 long years of meeting aliens from different worlds. 3 years of trying to find love among the stars. Amy worked as a xenobiology specialist. This meant she studied alien life forms and helped humans understand them better. It was interesting work, but it came with challenges. The biggest challenge was not the science. It was dating. When Amy first joined the crew, she was excited about meeting aliens. She thought it would be romantic to fall in love with someone from another world. The galaxy was full of different species, each with their own culture and ways of life. Surely she could find someone special among all these different beings. She was wrong. Her first serious relationship was with Zin, a male from the planet Zephyr. The Zephyrians were known for being very smart. They could solve complex math problems in their heads and build amazing machines. Zin was no different. He was tall and blue-skinned, with silver eyes that seemed to glow when he thought hard about something. At first, Amy found his intelligence attractive. Zin would explain the science behind stars and planets in ways that made her feel amazed. But soon she realized that Zin treated their relationship like a math problem. He would calculate the best times to spend together based on their work schedules. He made charts showing how their compatibility could be improved by 12.7% if she changed certain habits. Love is not an equation. Amy told him one day when he presented her with a graph showing their relationship efficiency over time. Zin looked confused. But if we optimize our interactions, we can achieve maximum happiness together. Amy tried to explain that love was about feelings, not numbers. But Zin could not understand. To him, everything had to make perfect sense. If something could not be measured or calculated, it was not worth his time. Their relationship ended when Zin created a formula that proved they were not mathematically compatible. After Zin, Amy met Krog, a warrior from the planet Corva. Krog was everything Zin was not. Where Zin was thin and thoughtful, Krog was big and strong. His red skin was covered in scars from battles, and his forearms could lift heavy objects with ease. Krog said he wanted to win Amy's heart like he won battles. The problem was that Krog treated Amy like a prize to be won, not a person to love. He would bring her gifts from his victories against space pirates. He told long stories about how brave he was in fights. Krog thought that if he showed her how strong he was, she would love him. "I do not need you to fight for me," Amy told him after he challenged 3 other crew members to combat because they talked to her. "But I must prove I am worthy of you," Krog replied, flexing his forearms. A Corvan male shows his love through strength and victory. Amy explained that she wanted a partner, not a protector. She wanted someone who would talk with her, not fight for her. But Krog could not understand this either. To him, love was about conquest. He had to defeat all other males to claim her. When Amy refused to be claimed, Krog left to find battles on other worlds. Next came Veltar, a Valtarian from the crystal cities of Valta. The Valtarians were known for being very spiritual. They meditated for hours and claimed to have evolved beyond basic physical needs. Veltar was tall and graceful, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. He spoke softly about higher consciousness and inner peace. At first, Amy appreciated Veltar's calm nature. After Krog's loud warrior ways, Veltar's quiet wisdom seemed appealing. He would teach her meditation techniques and share ancient Valtarian poetry about the connection between all living things. But soon Amy realized that Veltar thought physical affection was beneath him. When she tried to hold his hand, he pulled away gently. "Physical contact binds us to lower vibrations," he explained. "True love exists only in the meeting of minds and spirits." Amy wanted both emotional and physical connection. She tried to explain this to Veltar, but he looked at her with pity. "You are still bound by primitive desires," he said. "Perhaps in a few hundred years you will evolve to understand pure spiritual love." Amy felt frustrated. She did not want to wait hundreds of years to hold hands with someone she cared about. When Veltar suggested they love each other from separate meditation chambers, Amy knew the relationship was over. Her last serious alien relationship was with Hexani, a being made of living crystal from the planet Hexar. The Hexari communicated through musical sounds that their crystal bodies produced. Hexani could create beautiful melodies that expressed complex emotions and ideas. Amy found Hexani's music fascinating. She spent weeks learning to understand the basic tones that meant yes, no, happy, and sad. But deeper communication remained impossible. When Hexani tried to express love, the sounds were so complex that they gave Amy headaches. When Amy spoke words of affection, Hexani's crystal body would dim with confusion. They tried using translation devices, but emotions did not translate well. What felt like a sweet nothing to Amy sounded like a shopping list when converted to Hexari musical tones. What sounded like a beautiful love song from Hexani translated to technical instructions for building starship engines. After 6 months of trying to communicate, Amy and Hexani sadly agreed that their love was lost in translation. Hexani returned to the crystal caves of Hexar, leaving Amy with only the memory of beautiful but meaningless songs. Now Amy sat alone in her lab, wondering if she would ever find love among the stars. She had tried dating different types of aliens, but none of them understood what she needed. The smart ones treated love like science. The strong ones treated it like war. The spiritual ones thought it was above physical needs. The artistic ones could not share their feelings in ways she could understand. Maybe humans were meant to be alone in the galaxy. Maybe love could not cross the barriers between different species. Amy looked at the stars again and wondered if she was asking for too much. All she wanted was someone who could understand her heart. 3 weeks after Hexani left for the Crystal Caves, the New Horizons picked up a new crew member at Delta Station. Amy was working late in her lab when she heard the announcement over the ship's communication system. All crew, please welcome Chief Engineer Jake Morrison to the New Horizons family. Jake comes to us from the frontier colonies where he worked on terraforming projects for the past 5 years. Amy did not pay much attention. New crew members came and went all the time. She was too busy studying samples from a plant that might cure space sickness to worry about meeting another person who would probably leave soon anyway. The next evening, Amy was working late again. She often stayed in her lab until very late because she had trouble sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the disappointment of her failed relationships. Work helped her forget about being alone. She was looking at plant cells through her microscope when someone knocked on her lab door. Amy looked up, surprised. Most crew members were asleep by this time. "Come in," she called. A tall man with brown hair and kind eyes entered the lab. He was wearing the blue uniform of the engineering department and carrying 2 cups of coffee. The man was human, which surprised Amy. Most humans on the ship worked in command or science, not engineering. "I'm Jake Morrison," he said with a smile. "I noticed your lab light was still on and thought you might like some coffee. It's been a long day for everyone with the new crew assignments." Amy stared at him for a moment. No one had brought her coffee before without her asking. The alien males she had dated always waited for her to serve them drinks, following their own cultural traditions. "Thank you," she said, accepting the warm cup. "I'm Amy Harrison. I work in xenobiology." "I know," Jake said simply. "I read the crew files. Your research on alien plant life is helping colonies grow food on new planets. That's important work." Amy felt surprised again. Jake had actually read about her work. Zinn had only been interested in her research if it involved complex mathematical formulas. Krog thought science was boring compared to battle stories. Feltar believed that studying physical plants was too earthly for enlightened minds. Hexani could not understand why anyone would study silent, non-musical life forms. "What kind of terraforming did you do?" Amy asked, genuinely curious. Jake sat down in the chair across from her work table. "Mostly atmospheric processors and soil treatment systems. I helped set up the equipment that turns dead planets into places where Earth plants can grow. It's not as exciting as space battles or diplomatic missions, but it helps families build new homes." Amy liked the way Jake talked about his work. He did not brag about being a hero or claim his job was the most important on the ship. He just explained what he did and why it mattered. They talked for an hour about plants and soil and the challenges of making new worlds livable. Jake asked smart questions about Amy's research and shared stories about problems he had solved on different planets. When Amy mentioned that some alien plants grew better in Earth-style soil, Jake made notes on his tablet. "This could help the Kepler-7 colony," he said. "They're having trouble growing enough food. Maybe we can modify their soil processors based on your findings." Amy felt something she had not felt in a long time. Someone was listening to her ideas and thinking about how to use them to help people. Jake was not trying to impress her with his own knowledge. He was not treating her like a prize or a math problem. He was just talking with her like she was a person worth listening to. Over the next few weeks, Jake continued to bring Amy coffee during her late-night work sessions. He never asked for anything in return. He never tried to touch her or make romantic speeches. He just brought coffee and sometimes sat quietly while she worked, reading engineering reports on his tablet. One evening, Amy was feeling sad because she missed Earth. She had been in space for 3 years and sometimes felt homesick for things like rain and birds and the smell of grass after storms. "I miss rain," she said suddenly, not really talking to Jake but just thinking out loud. Jake looked up from his tablet. "What kind of rain do you miss most?" Amy was surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" "Well, there's the gentle rain that falls on quiet afternoons when you want to read a book by the window. There's the heavy rain that pounds on rooftops during summer storms. There's the cold rain that falls in autumn when the leaves are changing colors. There's morning rain that makes everything smell fresh and clean." Amy smiled. Jake described rain like it was an old friend with many moods. "I miss autumn rain the most. The kind that makes you want to wear warm sweaters and drink hot chocolate." "I know that rain," Jake said. "I grew up in Oregon. We had a lot of autumn rain there. I used to sit on my front porch and watch it fall on the maple trees in our yard." For the first time in months, Amy felt like someone understood her feelings about home. Zinn had tried to calculate the probability of rain on Earth. Krog had told her rain was for the weak because warriors should not need shelter. Veltar had said that missing physical places showed spiritual immaturity. Hexani had tried to compose rain songs, but they sounded nothing like real rain. Jake just understood that rain was something worth missing. A few days later, Amy's music player broke. It was an old device from Earth that played songs from home. When it stopped working, Amy felt sad. Music was one of the few things that helped her feel less alone in space. Amy mentioned the broken player to Jake when he brought her coffee that night. She did not ask him to fix it. She just said she was sad that it was broken and would have to order a new one from the next supply ship. The next evening, Jake returned her music player. "It was working perfectly. How did you fix it?" Amy asked, amazed. "The power connection was loose and some of the old Earth circuits needed cleaning," Jake explained. "I also loaded some new songs on it. Songs about rain and Earth weather. I thought you might like them." Amy turned on the player and heard soft music about rainfall and distant thunder. The songs made her think of home in a good way, not a sad way. She looked at Jake and felt something warm growing in her chest. Jake was different from the aliens she had dated. He did not try to solve her like a puzzle, or win her like a battle, or enlighten her with spiritual wisdom, or communicate with her through impossible sounds. He just paid attention to small things that mattered to her and tried to help in simple ways. Amy realized that Jake treated her like she was already worthy of care and attention. He did not think she needed to be improved or won or evolved or translated. He just thought she was Amy, and that was enough. For the first time since joining the crew of the New Horizons, Amy looked forward to her late-night work sessions, not because the work was more interesting, but because Jake would bring coffee, and they would talk about things that mattered to both of them. Maybe she had been looking for love in the wrong places. Maybe the answer was not among the stars, but sitting right across from her work table with kind eyes and warm coffee. 2 months later, the New Horizons docked at Nexus Prime, the largest trade station in this part of the galaxy. Amy was excited about the stop because she could buy new research equipment and maybe find some books from Earth. She had been spending more time with Jake, and their friendship was growing into something deeper. Jake had not tried to kiss her or make grand romantic gestures. Instead, he had fixed her broken desk lamp, taught her how to grow Earth herbs in space, and listened when she talked about her research dreams. Amy was starting to think that maybe love did not need to be complicated or dramatic. Maybe it could be simple and real. Amy was walking through the station's main market with Jake when she heard a familiar voice calling her name. "Amy Harrison, mathematical calculations indicate you are here." Amy turned around and felt her heart sink. Sin, her ex-boyfriend from Zephyr, was walking toward them with his usual confident stride. His blue skin seemed to shimmer more than usual, and his silver eyes were bright with excitement. "Hello, Zinn," Amy said carefully. "What are you doing here?" "I have calculated the perfect romantic scenario to win you back," Zinn announced, pulling out a small device that projected holographic images into the air. "Based on our previous relationship data, I have determined the exact combination of factors that will make you love me again." The hologram showed charts and graphs with Amy's face next to various romantic activities. There were pie charts showing her favorite foods, bar graphs measuring her preferred conversation topics, and timeline charts showing the optimal moments for physical contact. You see, Zin explained, pointing at the floating numbers. If I increase compliments by 23%, reduce mathematical discussions by 15%, and add 12.7 more hours of music listening per week, our compatibility will improve to 89.4%. This is much higher than any other male can achieve. Jake stood quietly beside Amy, watching the holographic presentation with curious eyes. He did not look angry or worried. He just looked interested, like he was learning something new about alien culture. Zin, Amy said gently, I told you before that love is not about calculations. You cannot make someone love you with math. But the numbers prove that we are perfect together, Zin insisted, waving at his holograms. I have even calculated the perfect first kiss timing down to the millisecond. Before Amy could respond, a loud roar echoed through the market. Krug, the Corvin warrior, pushed through the crowd of shoppers. His forearms were flexed and ready for battle, and his red skin was darker than usual with anger. Who dares to claim Amy Harrison? Krug shouted, looking directly at Jake. I challenge you to combat for mating rights. Amy felt embarrassed and frustrated. Krug, you cannot challenge people to fights over me. I am not a prize to be won. All worthy males must prove their strength, Krog declared, ignoring Amy's words. You, human engineer, do you accept my challenge? Or are you too weak to fight for your female? Jake stepped forward calmly. Amy held her breath, worried that Jake might feel pressured to fight. But instead of accepting the challenge, Jake did something unexpected. I do not need to fight for Amy, Jake said simply. She can choose for herself who she wants to be with. Fighting you would not prove anything about love. Krog looked confused. But how will you prove you are worthy of her without defeating me in battle? Maybe being worthy is not about defeating anyone, Jake replied. Maybe it is about being someone she wants to spend time with. Before Krog could respond, a soft, glowing figure approached them. Veltar, the Valtarian, moved through the crowd like he was floating on air. His pale skin shimmered with inner light, and his voice was as calm as always. Violence and mathematics are both primitive approaches to love, Veltar said, looking sadly at Zin and Krog. Amy, I have spent these months in deep meditation. I now understand that I was wrong to reject physical connection entirely. Amy felt hopeful for a moment. Maybe Veltar had learned to balance spiritual and physical love. I have evolved beyond the need for touch, Veltar continued. But I am willing to lower my vibration occasionally to hold your hand. Perhaps once per month, for no more than 5 minutes, I could tolerate physical contact for your sake. Amy's hope faded quickly. Veltar was still treating her needs like something beneath him. He was offering to suffer through holding her hand like it was a great sacrifice. That is very generous, Amy said sarcastically, but I want a partner who enjoys touching me, not someone who tolerates it. Just then, the most beautiful sounds Amy had ever heard filled the air. Crystal chimes and musical notes created a symphony that made everyone in the market stop and listen. Hexani appeared, their crystal body glowing with rainbow colors as they played their love song. The music was incredibly complex and beautiful. Amy could hear emotions in the crystalline notes that she had never experienced before. For a moment, she felt deeply moved by the aliens' musical declaration of love. Then the music got louder and louder. The crystal harmonies became so intense that they made the station's windows vibrate. People covered their ears as the beautiful song turned into painful noise. Several shop windows cracked and a few actually shattered, sending glass falling to the market floor. Station security guards ran toward them as alarms began to sound. Hexani, not understanding that their love song was causing damage, played even louder to express their passion. More windows broke and people began running away from the market. Stop, Amy shouted, but Hexani could not hear her over their own music. Jake calmly walked over to a station emergency panel and activated the sonic dampeners, devices designed to protect people from dangerous sound levels. The music became quieter, and Hexani's crystal body dimmed with confusion. Amy looked around at the chaos. Zin was still projecting his holographic love calculations, which were now showing error messages because of the sound damage. Krog was challenging the security guards to combat. Veltar was meditating to raise his vibrations above the negative energy of the situation. Hexani was playing confused notes that sounded like questions. Jake turned to Amy with the same calm expression he always had. "What do you want to do?" he asked simply. Amy stared at him. After all the dramatic presentations and challenges and songs and meditations, Jake was asking the one question that none of the others had thought to ask. He was not trying to impress her or prove himself or calculate her desires or fight for her or elevate her consciousness or serenade her with impossible music. He was just asking what she wanted. "I want to get away from all of this," Amy said, feeling overwhelmed by the noise and drama. "Okay," Jake said, "let's go." As they walked away from the chaos in the market, Amy realized something important. Jake was not trying to convince her to love him. He was not competing with the other males or trying to prove he was better than them. He was not treating her like a problem to solve, or a battle to win, or a spirit to enlighten, or a song to compose. He was treating her like a person whose feelings and choices mattered more than his own need to be chosen. For the first time, Amy understood what it meant to be truly respected by someone who cared about her. Jake did not want to own her or change her or win her or elevate her. He just wanted to support whatever made her happy. Amy looked back at her former suitors who were still arguing with each other and with station security. Then she looked at Jake, who was walking quietly beside her, ready to go wherever she wanted to go. The choice seemed very clear. 3 days after the chaos in the market, Amy and Jake were enjoying a quiet dinner at a small restaurant on Nexus Prime when the emergency alarms began to sound throughout the station. "All personnel report to emergency stations," the station's computer announced in multiple languages. "Class 5 solar storm approaching. All ships prepare for extended docking. Repeat, Class 5 solar storm approaching." Amy felt her stomach drop. Class 5 solar storms were dangerous. The radiation could damage ship systems and hurt people if they were caught in space. Everyone would be trapped on the station until the storm passed, which could take days or even weeks. Jake immediately stood up and checked his communicator. "The New Horizons is reporting shield stress," he said, reading the message. "Captain Chen wants all engineering staff to help the station repair their protection systems." Amy knew that if the station's shields failed during the storm, thousands of people could die from radiation poisoning. "I want to help too," she said. "I know about radiation effects on living tissue. Maybe my knowledge can be useful." They hurried to the station's engineering center where they found chaos. The station's engineers were running around trying to fix multiple problems at once. The shield generators were overheating. The power systems were failing. The backup systems were not working properly. "We need to get into the maintenance tunnels," Jake told Amy, pointing to a small entrance near the floor. "The main shield connections are down there, but the tunnels are very small. Only 2 people can work in there at a time." Amy nodded and followed Jake into the narrow tunnel. The space was barely big enough for them to crawl through side by side. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the metal walls, and the air was hot and thick. Amy could hear the storm getting stronger outside as wind and radiation battered the station's outer hull. As they worked their way through the tunnel toward the damaged shield connections, Amy noticed something remarkable about Jake. He seemed to know what she needed before she asked for it. When she reached for a tool, he was already handing it to her. When she needed more light to see a damaged wire, he moved his flashlight to exactly the right spot. When she needed someone to hold a heavy panel while she worked, he was already in position. "How do you know what I need before I ask?" Amy wondered out loud as they worked on a complex power connection. Jake smiled as he held a circuit board steady for her. "I just pay attention to what you are doing and try to think ahead. My dad taught me that when I was little. He said the best way to help someone is to watch and listen, not to wait for them to tell you everything." Amy had never experienced this kind of intuitive teamwork before. Zin would have needed detailed instructions for every task. Krog would have tried to do everything himself to prove his strength. Feltar would have meditated on the spiritual meaning of the work instead of actually helping. Hexani would have tried to help but could not understand. What needed to be done, Jake just worked with her like they had been partners for years. After 2 hours of crawling through tunnels and fixing damaged systems, they reached the main shield generator. Amy looked at the complex alien technology and felt confused. The Nexus Prime station used Zephyrian mathematical principles, Corvan military engineering, Beltarian energy crystals, and Hexari harmonic resonators all working together. It was like trying to fix a machine built by committee, where every part was designed by a different species with different ideas about how things should work. "This is impossible," Amy said, feeling frustrated. "Every part of this system follows different rules. The Zephyrian math does not match the Corvin power requirements. The Valterian crystals interfere with the Hexari resonators. No wonder it keeps breaking down. Jake studied the system for a few minutes, then smiled. What if we do not try to make all the different parts work together perfectly? He suggested. What if we create buffer zones between them, so each part can work the way it was designed to work without interfering with the others? Amy looked at the system again, trying to understand Jake's idea. You mean like translation layers between the different technologies? Exactly, Jake said, already pulling out his tools. We cannot make Zephyrian math think like Corvin engineering, but we can create a bridge that lets both systems do what they do best. Amy watched in amazement as Jake began building simple but clever solutions to connect the incompatible alien technologies. He used basic human engineering principles to create harmony between systems that were designed to conflict with each other. Instead of trying to force the alien parts to change, he worked around their differences. This is brilliant, Amy said as she helped him install the buffer connections. You are not trying to make everyone the same. You are finding ways to let everyone be different while still working together. That is what humans do best, Jake replied, connecting a wire that would let the Valterian crystals work, without disrupting the Hexari resonators. We are not the strongest or the smartest or the most spiritual, but we are good at finding ways for different kinds of people to work together. As they worked, Amy began to understand something important about Jake and about humans in general. The aliens she had dated always wanted to change her or fix her or improve her in some way. They thought love meant making someone become more like you. But Jake accepted her exactly as she was and found ways to build bridges between their differences. Just as Amy was starting to feel hopeful about finishing the repairs, a power surge ran through the system. Sparks flew from the connections they had just fixed, and the tunnel filled with smoke. The emergency lights went out, leaving them in complete darkness. Amy felt panic rising in her chest. They were trapped in a small space with no light, breathing smoke while a deadly storm raged outside. All their work might be ruined. People could die if they could not fix the shields. We failed, Amy said, her voice shaking. It is too complicated. There are too many different systems. We cannot make it work. In the darkness, Amy began to cry. All the stress and pressure and fear came pouring out of her at once. She thought about her failed relationships with aliens who could not understand her. She thought about being alone in space, far from Earth and everything familiar. She thought about the people on the station who might die if she could not solve this problem. Amy expected Jake to try to calm her down or tell her everything would be okay, or analyze the situation logically. That is what her alien boyfriends would have done. Zinn would have calculated the probability of success. Krog would have told her that warriors do not cry. Veltar would have said that fear was a lower vibration that she needed to overcome. Hexani would have played confused music. Instead, Jake did something completely different. In the darkness, he moved closer to Amy and gently put his arms around her. He did not say anything at first. He just held her and let her cry. It is okay to be scared, he said softly. It is okay to feel overwhelmed. You do not have to be strong all the time. Amy leaned against Jake's chest and felt something she had never felt with any of her alien boyfriends. She felt completely accepted. Jake was not trying to fix her emotions or change her feelings or make her be different. He was just there with her, sharing the scary moment and letting her be human. What if we cannot fix it? Amy whispered. Then we will try something else, Jake said simply. We will keep trying until we find a way that works. But right now you needed to cry, so we cry. When you are ready, we will get back to work. Amy realized that this was what she had been missing in all her relationships with aliens. She had been looking for someone who would understand her perfectly, or solve all her problems or be everything she needed. But what she really needed was someone who would just be with her, exactly as she was in whatever moment they were sharing. Jake was not trying to be her perfect match. He was just trying to be a good partner, one moment at a time. After a few minutes, Amy felt ready to work again. Jake turned on his backup flashlight, and they began repairing the damage from the power surge. This time, Amy felt calmer and more focused. She was not working alone anymore. She had a true partner beside her. Together, they found a way to make the incompatible alien systems work in harmony, just like they were learning to make their own very different hearts work together. The solar storm finally ended after 5 days, but the crisis was not over. News of Amy and Jake's successful repair of the station's shield system had spread throughout Nexus Prime. Now representatives from different alien species were gathering in the station's main conference room, and they all wanted to talk about relationships between species. Amy sat beside Jake at a long table facing delegates from dozens of different worlds. Captain Chen had asked them to attend the meeting because their teamwork during the emergency had impressed many people. What started as a simple discussion about engineering cooperation had quickly turned into something much more complicated. Zin stood up first, his blue skin shimmering as he activated a holographic display. The success of Amy Harrison and Jake Morrison proves that relationships work best when they are based on logical compatibility, he announced. Our calculations show that Zephyrian mathematical principles were essential to the shield repair. This proves that intellectual partnership is the foundation of all successful cooperation. Krog jumped up from his seat, his forearms flexed with irritation. Numbers did not save the station, he roared. It was courage and strength that got them through the dangerous tunnels. Corvan warrior traditions teach that only the strong can protect those they love. Jake Morrison proved his worth through brave action, not weak calculations. Feltar rose gracefully, his pale skin glowing with spiritual energy. Both physical strength and mental calculation are lower vibrations, he said in his calm voice. True cooperation comes from spiritual connection. Amy and Jake succeeded because they elevated their consciousness above material concerns and worked for the greater good of all beings. Hexani's crystal body began playing soft, complex music that the translation devices converted to words. Harmony creates unity, the artificial voice said. Their success came from finding the right frequency of cooperation, like two instruments playing in perfect tune. Art and beauty bring hearts together across all differences. Amy watched the alien delegates argue about which approach to relationships was best. Each species was claiming that their way of loving was superior, and that Amy should choose a partner from their people, because their culture understood cooperation better than others. She felt frustrated and tired. Even after everything that had happened, the aliens still did not understand what made her relationship with Jake special. They were still trying to prove that their species was better instead of listening to what she actually wanted. Jake had been sitting quietly during the entire debate, listening to each speaker with the same patient attention he gave to everything else. Now he stood up slowly and walked to the center of the room. "May I say something?" Jake asked politely. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the human engineer who had helped save their lives during the storm. "I have been listening to all of your arguments about which species understands love and cooperation best," Jake began. "You have all made good points about the strengths of your cultures. Zephyrians are very smart. Corvans are very strong. Valtarians are very spiritual. Hexari create beautiful art. These are all wonderful qualities." Jake paused and looked around the room at the alien faces watching him. "But I think you are all missing something important," he continued. "You are trying to prove that your way is the right way for everyone. You want Amy to choose someone from your species because you think your culture has the best approach to love and relationships." Amy felt her heart beating faster as Jake spoke. She could see that some of the aliens looked confused or even angry that a human was questioning their beliefs. "The thing is," Jake said gently, "love is not about finding the perfect approach or the strongest partner, or the smartest solution or the most spiritual connection. Love is about choosing to build something together with another person, even when you are both imperfect." Zin looked puzzled. "But mathematical optimization creates the most efficient relationships." "Efficiency is not the same as happiness," Jake replied. "Amy does not need me to calculate her feelings. She needs me to listen when she talks and care about what matters to her." Krog crossed his forearms. "But without strength, how can you protect the ones you love?" "The best protection I can give Amy is supporting her choices and helping her feel safe to be herself," Jake answered. "She does not need me to fight battles for her. She can handle her own challenges. She just needs to know I will be there beside her." Feltar looked thoughtful. "Do you not believe that spiritual growth improves relationships?" "Growing as people is important," Jake agreed. "But real growth happens when someone accepts you as you are right now, not when they try to make you into something else. Amy helps me become a better person by loving who I am today, not who I might become tomorrow." Hexani played a questioning melody that translated to, "How do you create harmony without perfect resonance?" Jake smiled at the crystal being. "Harmony does not mean everyone makes the same sound. It means different sounds working together to create something beautiful. Amy and I are very different people, but our differences make us stronger as a team. Amy felt tears in her eyes as she listened to Jake explain their relationship to the assembled aliens. He was not claiming that humans were better than other species. He was not saying that his approach was the only right way. He was simply describing what worked for them as individuals. Humans are not the smartest species in the galaxy, Jake continued. We are not the strongest or the most spiritual or the most artistic, but we are good at one thing. We are good at adapting. We are good at finding ways for different kinds of people to work together without forcing everyone to be the same. Jake turned to look at Amy, and she saw love and respect in his eyes. Amy could probably find someone smarter than me or stronger than me or more spiritual than me, he said. But she will not find anyone who cares more about her happiness or who works harder to understand what she needs. I do not love her because she is perfect. I love her because she is Amy, and that is enough. The room was completely quiet. Amy stood up and walked over to Jake. She took his hands in hers and looked around at all the alien representatives. Jake is right, she said clearly. I have dated males from different species, and they all had wonderful qualities. But they all wanted to change me or fix me or improve me in some way. They thought love meant making me become more like them, or teaching me to appreciate their culture more than my own. Amy looked at each of her former boyfriends in turn. Zen, you wanted me to think like a mathematician. Krog, you wanted me to act like a warrior. Veltar, you wanted me to become more spiritual. Hexani, you wanted me to communicate like music instead of words. You all thought that if I just understood your way of being, I would love you. She turned back to Jake and smiled. But Jake never wanted me to be different. He learned about my interests and my dreams and my fears, and he decided that Amy was someone worth caring about exactly as she is. He does not love me because I am human. He loves me because I am me. Amy addressed the entire assembly. The best relationships are not about finding someone exactly like you or converting someone to your way of thinking. The best relationships are about building bridges between differences and creating something new together. Captain Chen, who had been watching the entire debate, stood up at the back of the room. This discussion has been very educational, she said diplomatically. But I think Amy has made her choice clear. The question now is how we can all work together better, regardless of which species we come from. Over the next few hours, the meeting transformed from an argument about superior relationship styles into a productive discussion about cooperation between different cultures. Jake and Amy's repair of the shield system became a model for how different technologies and approaches could work together, without anyone having to give up their own identity. 6 months later, Amy and Jake were working together on a new terraforming project for a planet that would be home to multiple species. Amy's knowledge of alien biology helped them understand how different kinds of plants could grow in the same soil. Jake's engineering skills helped them design systems that could adapt to the needs of various species without forcing anyone to change their natural way of life. As they worked in their laboratory aboard the New Horizons, Amy thought about how much her life had changed. She was not alone anymore, but she was still herself. Jake had not tried to make her more human or less interested in alien cultures. Instead, he had helped her become more confident in who she already was. Do you ever miss Earth? Amy asked Jake as they watched their test plants growing under alien starlight. I miss some things about Earth, Jake replied, checking the soil moisture levels. But I think home is not really a place. Home is being with someone who understands you and wants to build a future together. Amy smiled and took his hand. She had spent years looking for love among the stars, trying to find someone from an exotic world who would sweep her away with alien romance. But the love she found was simpler and more real than anything she had imagined. Jake was not from a distant planet or an ancient civilization. He was just a human man from Oregon who brought her coffee and fixed her music player and held her when she cried and supported her dreams. He was not perfect, and neither was she. But they were